Welcome back, PlayBASIC coders. Today we'll look at a replacement for the Z clipper, and I want to bring this into the vertex buffer stuff. I'll show you this old demo for starters. It's tagged as being PS3D. It's a software renderer for PlayBASIC. So it's using the built-in triangle rendering, and there's a bunch of other features too that are built in. Some of them were just leftover tests from way back in the day. One of them is this thing called translate mesh to scene or something like that. And a mesh is really just a list of these polygon or these triangle definitions. They can be quads too, but I think we'll just make them triangles from now on. And that's how this thing actually works. You can render thousands of objects this way. Yeah, I mean they're very simple cubes, but the downside of this is that you don't have perspective correction and you don't actually have a Z buffer. While I was testing the latest builds of PlayBASIC, I ran some problems with this, and the mouse move wasn't working very well, and some other demos had the same problem. So I was trying to fix that, or fix the examples and make sure the back end of PB is working correctly on Windows 10 and Windows 11. It seems to be now anyway. There was a problem with the mouse wrapping, which would make the camera, because here I'm using mouse look on the camera, and if you notice the pointer is wrapping around in space here. If I just turn around, when the mouse was repositioned, it would just cause the camera to go crazy and haywire. It was more of a problem vertically. It's still not perfect actually, but you know, it was much better. So I wanted to bring those oddball commands into the Vertex Objects sort of library, which is a very old library that was built around this concept back in the day when we're trying to work out, can we have a 2D render with polygonal objects inside the 2D render? For that you need things to translate geometry, rotate geometry and that kind of stuff, and then render objects. You might have seen as a 2D platformer viewed from a camera that roams around in space, very primitive, you know, compared to what's done these days. But that was written, 20 odd years ago. That was what was on my mind at the time. I'd seen, 2D games that actually had pseudo 3D elements in them. I thought, well, why couldn't you use some polygons in a 2D world anyway? So I got looking at the library and looking at some of the commands that are mostly undocumented. They're mostly just kind of things that people have uncovered and I've used in demos, so therefore people would be familiar with them. Where is this thing, by the way? Vertex Objects. So I've been updating this a little bit to improve it, make it more representative of 165. That's what all this update work is all for. It's where if it's in the package already, we're trying to make it work as the best it could possibly work. And the one thing that this library does, this mesh command, wherever this is hidden away, it's probably in the objects. There it is there. This translate mesh to scene, which is not really documented in the documentation, but it will be. I'll add it to the library and it'll be documented as part of this library. So it'll be just there for legacy reasons, really. It has a bunch of parameters, and when I looked inside this function inside the engine, had this really laborious clipping process, because when you use this mesh function here, you actually get clipping. It will clip polygons to the near and far Z plane. which if you do all the rotation and triangle rendering yourself, you would have to do, you don't really have to do it, but you would normally do clipping against the near Z plane at least for when triangles are in front of the camera. And because we have linear texture mapping, the triangles up near the camera get distorted. In this demo, it's not that visible because we're using a texture that is it's this big face thing. I think it's a picture by Facet, a sort of very famous demo scene artist. Probably most demos have some, particularly on the Amiga as well. What you're seeing there is the terrain being clipped by the clipping process inside the engine. This clipper is, it's okay, it works, but it couldn't do, if you move the near and far planes together, it actually can't, it doesn't work. And here we're sort of hidden, we're not really seeing a lot of the distortion because the textures on the mesh are very small. There it is there, see that? As it skews away. So we've got, the whole terrain has a texture, I think it's maybe 256 or 512 by 512. So each small triangle on here really is representative of only a handful, a tiny amount of pixels in that context. It's much more obvious when you look at the distortion here. So the face is kind of curving and it just doesn't quite look right to your eye. That's more obvious there. There it is. So because I can step through it, it's getting clipped. There it is, being clipped there. You get lots of warping. When I was looking through the code base, there's an older subsection of that code, this translate mesh to scene stuff, that did subdivisions. Where I tested it out at some point and went, well, it doesn't really work very well. Let's throw it away. That's what I want to look at today. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to update this translate mesh thing to use the latest clipping method, which I'll show you now, which I've got a mock-up here written in PB. So I've got just a bunch of polygons coming from a far point to through the camera and beyond. Actually, the clipping plane is in front of the camera really, and all this stuff here is the subdivision that's happening. Now I'm not drawing that. I'm drawing these polygons, and the clipper is actually cutting these up in here, trying to hold that perspective a bit better. So if you look closely, you'll see there's kind of two different zones. There's near the camera where it gets, each triangle actually becomes, I think it's 16 triangles. Further away, they become, each polygon becomes 4 triangles. It's 4 by 4 anyway. Each region gets subdivided down. Unfortunately, because this is affine texture mapping, we can't eliminate the distortion entirely. That's a bridge too far, but just improving the clipper can make some of those things work better for us. Now, I don't know how this works in the real world, because here I've just got like a series of polygons. And I'm sort of visualizing it to see how this is working. All I can say so far is this works better than the old one. That doesn't mean much. And if you played games on the PlayStation 1, or you played games, software renderers in the 90s, they generally didn't have per pixel Z buffering, and they generally, on the PlayStation, they're all affine texture mapping. So there's no perspective correction there. And you have no Z buffer. You just have a triangle rasterizer like you do in PlayBASIC. So to approximate perspective, you've got to effectively cut up the surfaces. All these different strategies on how to do that. I think what I'll do is I'll make this optional. There'll be like you'll switch a mode on or something like that when you do translate mesh to scene. There'll be a flag or whatever where you can make it. Do you want to subdivide or not? So you can, per mesh, you can do this. It automatically turns off once the object gets beyond a certain point. Obviously, if you have really large polygons in this kind of environment, that would just not work. In the Wolf 3D or the sort of PolyWolf demos from last year, the floors, the walls, the objects, they're all subdivided. So it's not perfect prospectively, but it works. It works pretty well. Turn off, turn on, off on. I'm using the shaded triangles here, by the way, and I'm drawing a second filled shaded polygon, kind of with a random color to see the subdivision easier. Initially, it wasn't actually rendered like that. Go here. I wasn't bothering to texture it. I was just kind of going, well, let's just have a look at just the general subdivision up front. So when you turn it off, that's where the actual polygons for the roadway I'm creating, and it's halving this polygon here into 4 new polygons and then subdividing those into 4 new polygons again. Potentially we could go further. I was actually hoping to think of a clever way of just making this just write a simple routine that splits up them recursively. I can use recursion, but I don't think I need to go more than, honestly, if you're cutting a triangle up and you're producing 64 polygons in its place, that's a lot of work. Because we're producing these things in space, transforming them to 2D screen, and then they're going into the scene buffer to be sorted. So per polygon too. So that would help with things like characters walking on top of a roadway, for example. Because the sorting if you have large polygons and you sort whether it's on the front face or the average or the back faces or whatever, and then you just try and put other objects in the scene together with it, you'll get popping. It was visible back in the other demo here. It's more obvious in the PlaySoft demo. That delay at the start where we're loading these MD2 meshes. So you can see it here. It's more obvious that the two things are fighting for in terms of render order. If the ground was flat, you could really clip one object to another if you really wanted to. But I think doing that in PB code, in user code, is probably a bridge too far. And that's one thing I want to add actually is having an arbitrary plane and be able to slice an object up. But we haven't got to that yet. No. So at the moment we're still in the old version. I'm still working in PlayBASIC 2D land. So that's more of the 3D sort of thinking. But hopefully you sort of understand what I'm saying. Is the mesh is a series of pretty small polygons comparatively, and these dragons here are as well. If we see, there's one there. it kind of looks like that's in front of something because it just happens to be in front of that the actual terrain mesh there. If we subdivide the faces of that cube down to small fragments, you could get to a point where you would almost see like a very fine, it wouldn't be a fine edge, but a very granular and chunky edge as it moves through the floor. The way that's done in PolyWolf, for example, the floors are drawn in first pass, and then the characters are drawn over top. So they're never actually in one buffer and then all sorted together. That's why this actually happens. There's lots of strategies for dealing with this kind of stuff. And those classic PlayStation 1 games, when you watch them these days, there's some great engineering in those applications. Like building those things and getting them to look as good as what they do would have been very challenging. But anyway, having this is really just, we're doing the final testing. We're taking some things that were kind of hidden and not documented, exposing them through the Vertex Objects library. We'll add that to the documentation so you can mess around with some 3D sort of concepts yourself. You're not going to make an award-winning 3D game, but hey, you might come up with the next neat idea, make some cool stuff out of it. That's the point, dudes. I'll try and get this clipping stuff implemented probably over the weekend, I guess. Maybe won't be tomorrow, but we'll just pump the object count up. Here we go. We're capturing this 5,500 crazy cubes. Starting to choke now, but there you go. One thing I do have to say though is that the new clipper will be faster than this one here, so it should actually be able to handle this level of geometry better. So we've got a faster Z sorting stuff in the scene buffer these days. We'll have better clipping. That should all improve the performance of those things. For those people who want to just go crazy, try stuff out. Yeah. There we are. We ran to a point where there's so much stuff in the scene buffer, it's overflowed. It wasn't, that the scene buffer is just a big arena that as you capture things, they get dumped into the arena, then they get sorted as an in depth order and then rendered to the screen in painters. That's all that stuff actually is. Alrighty, that's all for me. Hope you guys are enjoying yourself, doing some stuff. Make sure you check out Steve's IDE work as well on the forums. Very interesting. Should be ready to rock pretty soon, I guess. And we'll have the new builds, the new features out there, and with a new IDE, so that'll be cool. Alright dudes, see you next time. Bye.